Okay, I think this time I'm broadcasting. So I'll know in a minute. My wife will send me something to saying, "Oh, there you are. I see you." Um, there. So I think now I'm broadcasting. I was just going, just talking away for 30 minutes. Had no idea that you heard none of it. So I'm going to zip through it and give us a quick Bible study. Um, so we're going to start with Luke chapter 12. And just remind us that Jesus has gone into the Pharisee's house and he is having dinner there. The Pharisee invited him into his house on purpose to test him. And when Jesus walked in, Jesus didn't wash his hands in the big fancy way that the Pharisees all do. Jesus did wash his hands. Jesus was not nasty, but they do a lot of things for show. And so the Pharisees, well, why don't you wash in this way? And Jesus tells the Pharisees, well, you're so concerned with the outside and not the inside. You're concerned with your looks and all this. So he says you clean the outside, but the inside is full of deceit. He's talking about that's who you are. You're putting on a show for everybody. Um, and then there's some lawyers there, and he begins to kind of tell them about themselves, which is very important because for 3 years he's been saying nothing but wonderful, good things. But in the last 6 months, he's spending his time heading toward Jerusalem, where all the Pharisees are, and they're the toughest nut to crack, right? And but he still has to reach them, but his words are harsher for them because they're more in defiance of him, right? So I will put on my glasses, and hopefully my wife is saying yes. Just came on. Great. So, um, so he's in their house, and in the last two verses of Luke 11, Luke 11, verse 53 and 54, he says, as he said these things to them, because he's talking to the scribes and the Pharisees, the scribes and the Pharisees began to assail him vehemently and to cross-examine him about many things, lying in wait for him and asking and seeking to catch him in something he might say that they might accuse him. So that's the scene is being set. Is he was invited to dinner just so that they can try to catch him. He knew that. He could have said, I'm not going there. They don't. But because he still needs to reach them. Even though they've got bad motives, I still need to reach you. So outside are all these multitudes who have been listening in, because in those days you would just leave your doors open. People could see who you were having dinner with, and they'd sit and watch, and it was just that kind of culture for whatever reason. Like having dinner on your front yard, all the neighbors can see you. So the disciples are there, regular folk are there, the Pharisees and scribes behind him. Jesus walks out of the house, and that's where we find ourselves. So it says, in the meantime, Luke 12, verse 1, when an innumerable multitude of people had gathered together so that they trampled one another, he began to say to the disciples, first of all, beware the leaven of the Pharisees, which is hypocrisy. And that's where we get the word hypocrisy is where the first word they use for actors. You would put on a mask. Now actors wear makeup and all that, but in those days you would just put on a mask. Now I'm a villain. Now I'm a good guy. Now, right? Um, he says they're putting on a mask. That's not the real them. They're hiding who they really are. And they're putting on this mask for everybody that's so wonderful, but that's not who they are. He tells the disciple, make sure you don't do that. Make sure you don't wear a mask because I'm going to send you out. You are a light to the people, and don't put your light under a bushel. Don't be like them, right? So he says, beware the leaven of the Pharisees, which is hypocrisy, for there is nothing covered that will not be revealed, nor hidden that will not be known. So even though they're hiding, eventually that mask is going to be torn off, and we're going to see who they really are. And so, therefore, verse 3, whatever you have spoken in the dark will be heard in the light. So if you've got something good, say it, right? But even those people who are saying bad stuff, it's going to be found out. Uh, he says, and what you have spoken in the ear in inner rooms will eventually be proclaimed on the housetops. But he's saying this to encourage the disciples because the doctrine, I'm telling you, is going to be a light to the world. Because in the previous chapter, he told them, You don't take your light and hide it under a bushel. You put it so everybody can see it. Everything I'm telling you, don't hide this light. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to tell everybody the good news, right? Don't hide it. Because these little things that you're whispering eventually must be proclaimed on the housetops. Well, just know that and this still happens in some Eastern countries, Middle Eastern countries, the king sends somebody and they stand on the rooftop and they proclaim to the whole village in the early evening when everybody's come home from their labors. Here's what the king is saying. He's proclaiming this, proclaiming that. That's just what they did. They didn't have microphones and television, so somebody would just stand on the rooftop. So he says, the things that I'm telling you now, everybody's eventually going to hear them. So don't be shy about it. Don't be afraid. Don't hide your light. I want to read from Jeremiah. In Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 4. It says, then the word of the Lord came to me saying, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I sanctified you. I ordained you a prophet to the nations. So, and Jesus is telling Jeremiah specifically, here's the ministry I had for you. I ordained you to be a prophet to the nations. But he's kind of telling all of us, I have a ministry for all of you, even if your ministry is just to your niece or to your neighbor, or, there's someone God is going to put in your life that you can help, be a help to. And he says, but before you were born, I already knew who you would help and I already gave you what that person needs. I put it inside of you and you'll be able to help somebody with it. Then I said, Lord God. And Jeremiah was scared. I'm a man of unclean lips. And, he's scared to say what God had put in his heart. And Jesus is kind of quoting from that part when he's talking to the disciples, saying, the things I've told you, don't hide them under a bushel, proclaim them from the housetops. Don't be like Jeremiah. And he says, behold, I cannot speak, for I'm a youth. This is Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 6. But the Lord said to me, do not say I'm a youth, for you shall go to all whom I send you. And whatever I command you, you shall speak. Do not be afraid of their faces, for I am with you to deliver you, says the Lord. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. If I'm sending you, I will protect you. If I gave you something to say to somebody, do not worry. So that neighbor God is drawing you to, that church member, that friend, that relative, whoever that God may at some point draw you to say something, don't be afraid. Go. I've sent you to them. They'll hear what you have to say. In Isaiah 51, it's the same similar thing. He's telling Isaiah, I want you to speak to this people, even though they're rebellious, speak to them and tell them what I have to say. It says, even I am he who comforts you. This is Isaiah 51, verse 12. Who are you that you are afraid of man who dies? Like what? Don't be afraid of that man. Who are you that you're afraid of man who dies? You're afraid of the wrong. In fact, I titled this, who are you afraid of? Because we need to be more afraid of God, but not afraid like God's going to. God has power. These people really don't have power over us. So we shouldn't be afraid of people who don't have power over us. But we are, but what are they going to say? And what's he going to think? And if I've told you to go to them, don't be afraid of them. Who are you that are afraid of man who dies and the son of man who is made like grass? Because grass grows and then it dies and grows. I'm one living forever. And I already know what's going to happen 6 months from now, 10 years from now in your life. So you need to have an awesome respect for me, but not man. They don't know nothing. He says, verse 13, that you have forgotten the Lord your maker who stretched out the heavens, because the people were listening to the kings and afraid of these other nations, and they were going into idolatry because they were, but this king is going to be upset with it. You're not more afraid of what God's going to be mad at you for? So have you forgotten the Lord your maker who stretched out the heaven and who laid the foundations of the earth, that you fear continually all day long because of the fury of the oppressor? You're afraid of the oppressor? You've forgotten that I'm the one who created everything? You're afraid. Now, he's talking about the Babylonians. The Babylonians are about to come and oppress them. Your fear is of the Babylonians. Don't be afraid of them. As he makes ready to destroy the oppressor, as he makes ready to destroy. But where is the fury of the oppressor? He can't really hurt you. They're going to come. They're going to take you into captivity because I'm letting them. But I'm going to protect you while you're there. And then you're going to be delivered. And then you're going to go free. So don't worry about these situations when they come up. And that's what we have to be. We can't, oh no, the bank is going to foreclose. God's like, I got you. I got whatever situations are about to come up. I've got you. Don't be afraid of them. I'm mightier than they. So in verse 14, it says, this exile will soon be set free and will not die in the dungeon, nor will his bread be lacking. When you're in exile, you're not going to die in the dungeon. You're not going to starve to death. For I am the Lord your God, who stirs up the sea and its waves roar. The Lord of hosts is his name. That's me, the host of army of angels I've got. That's just a little man. He's nothing. I put my words in your mouth, and I have covered you with the shadow of my hand to establish the heavens, to found the earth, and to say to Zion, you are my people. So I got you. Don't be afraid of the things I tell you to say, Isaiah. Because Isaiah was sent to warn the people about the exile, but to also let them know that the exile won't last for a long time and that God is going to deliver them. But don't be afraid to say that to them. And he's saying that to the disciples. Jesus is saying that to his disciples in this little tiny section. He says, I say to you, my friends, back in Luke chapter 12, verse 4. I say to you, my friends, do not be afraid of those who kill the body. And after that, there's no more that they can do. Now, don't be afraid of man who he can kill your body, but he can't kill your spirit. You're going to spend eternity in heaven. Heaven's a real place. You're not going to be a spirit. You're not going to be a vapor. It's a real place. It is the spirit realm that you cannot see. But once you step out of this body, you go, oh my, look at this realm. And it's bigger and wider than you kind of ever imagine. And I would say to my high school students when I was teaching them, high school is not the world. The world is the world. As soon as you step out of this high school and you graduate, you're going to go, oh, now. So I'm preparing you for that, not for this. You can't stay in high school forever. You're going to have to graduate. And then you're going to have to know what you're doing out in the world. Some of you have become really great at high school. You know how to do fart jokes, and none of those skills are going to help you out in the world. So let me prepare you for the rest of your life. And that's what God is saying. Don't be afraid of those who can kill the body, this body. And after that, have no more they can do to you. They can't do nothing to your spirit. But I will show you whom you should fear. Fear him who, after he is killed, has the power to cast into hell. Yes, I say you fear him. Now he's saying this so the Pharisees can hear and these people can hear. Fear God. Now, some people say, no, he couldn't be talking about God. He's talking about the devil. Fear him who is, after he is killed, has the power to cast you into hell. The Bible never tells us to fear the devil. He's saying you need to have a reverence for God. And he's saying this down there for the Pharisees to hear. Don't forget, there's the disciples, the people, the Pharisees. Like, you guys need to fear me, because this little life that you're holding on to and being all fancy and you're rich now, what happens if you end up in hell after all this, after you're doing all this drama and you may just end up in hell? That's when you need to be afraid. Fear the person who can send you to hell. Not these people around here who, after you're dead, they can't do nothing. So the Bible never tells us to fear the devil. In 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 8, it says, be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, walks about like a roaring lion. He's not a roaring lion, but he acts like one, seeking whom he may devour. Resist him. That's what I'm saying. Just resist him. Steadfast in the faith. Devil, I'm not listening to you. And he's powerless. Knowing that the same sufferings are experienced by your brotherhood in the world. Same things you're going through. Everybody's going through this stuff. Don't let the devil tell you, ooh, this is unusual. No one else is experiencing this. This is what you're going through is the worst thing. And no, it's not, devil. Everybody gets hungry sometimes. Everybody messes up sometimes. Everybody does this sometimes. We are all knowing that what you're going through, everybody's going through. Don't let the devil make you crazy and make you feel isolated, make you think God is mad at you. Just resist the devil. Just say, devil, shut up. I know God loves me. I know I'm in his hands. In James chapter 4, verse 7, it says, therefore submit to God, resist the devil, and he'll flee from you. It doesn't say fear the devil, just resist him. Just and he's got to get away. The devil has no power. Don't let the devil make you think he's got power. He does not. In fact, that's why in Luke chapter 10, in the previous chapter, we're in 12, so I guess 2 chapters ago, Jesus said, it says, when the 70 returned, Luke 10:17 says, then the 70 returned with joy, saying, Lord, even the demons are subject to us in your name. And he said to them, I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. Yeah, the demons are subject to you. I saw Satan get kicked out of heaven. So he's nothing. Behold, I give you authority to trample on serpents and scorpions. And that's euphemisms for the devil, right? And over all the power of the enemy. Nothing shall by any means hurt you. Nevertheless, do not rejoice in this, that the spirits are subject to you, but rather rejoice because your names are written in heaven. You need to be more worried about God and am I going to heaven than what the devil can do to you. You've got power over the devil. Devil's nothing. He's already defeated. I already saw him get kicked out of heaven. You're afraid of somebody who got fired. He's not in power. So back to Luke, just the last couple of chapters. Last couple of verses. So Luke chapter 12, verse 6, he says, are not 5 sparrows sold for 2 copper coins? And not one of them is forgotten before God. He's saying you can buy some sparrows for like a quarter. And God still takes care of them. He feeds them. He makes sure they've got wings. So he says, verse 7, the very hairs of your head are all numbered. God knows how many. He put every single hair in your head. Some of you say, well, I don't got no more. Well, he put the ones that were there when you were born. He says, do not fear, therefore. God knows even how many hairs are on your head. He knows everything about you. He knows everything that's coming up in your life. So we need to just relax. Okay, God, what I'm going through right now, you already knew about it. I'm not going to be crazy. You already knew. So I'm good. So therefore, do not fear, for you are of more value than many sparrows. And I'm going to stop there. And thank you so much for listening in. Sorry that I thought I was broadcasting at 6 o'clock. But I appreciate you listening in now. Okay, so this is the last time I am going to be starting early like this. No, I'm going to go back to starting at 7 o'clock, starting next week. And so thank you so much for listening. But this Sunday, 8 a.m., for those of you who actually listen, I'll be doing it at 8 a.m. And then this is the last time, even for Sunday, that I'll be starting early. All right, thank you so much. I'll talk to you later. All right, bye-bye.